So far in the previous two videos, we've discussed one, looking at the heel contact point and posterior view and how that's really important in terms of looking at three key pillars: the rate of pronation, the heel contact point, and whether that person is abducted or adducted. We've now moved from a posterior assessment to a side-on view, which, just to rephrase, is looking at where the heel contact point is in relation to the body, so how far in front of the body it is, looking at where the sagittal plane facilitation is occurring, and looking at their head position and their body position when moving. So now the final phase is looking at it front on. And once again, I'm going to break it down into three easy and quick to digest steps for you to be able to understand so that you can apply it straight away. So the 3 points that I'll be looking for in the propulsion phase are this. Number one, is there extensive firing going through the toes? And has all the toes got contact with the ground throughout the propulsion phase? This is really important because you're not going to only look at your big toe here, but all your lesser toes as well, as they all form a part of propulsion. Quite often we get sucked into just looking at the big toe, and yes, the big toe is incredibly important when it comes to providing propulsion and weight bearing through resupination. But looking at your other toes are just as vital as well. They provide balance, proprioception, and movement that is generally much more clear than if the person is going just through their big toe. So, number one, look at whether there's an extensive firing occurring. And that's generally looked at as the toes are lifting up from the sky and that the toes are clawing like this. Point number two in a front-on view is you're going to be looking at everything a little bit more proximal. It's a lot easier when it's front on and you've digested the posterior and side on view to be able to look at things a little bit higher on. So things like looking at your pelvis, whether the hips circumducting throughout movement, looking at your shoulders as well, whether your shoulders are leading one side to the other. When you're looking at the upper body, it also provides you with some really good feedback and ways that you can be able to implement and change what's happening down below the hips. The final thing that I look at from an anterior perspective or front-on perspective is their base of gait. The wider the base of gait, the more center of mass goes through the inside of the leg. The narrower the base of gait, the more center of mass that goes through the outside of the leg. This is super vital and important when it comes to balance and proprioception when someone's moving. So, rephrasing the 3 points that we've gone through here today. One, when we're looking at a front-on view, we're looking at extensive firing of the lesser toes and whether all toes get contact on the ground throughout movement and resupination. Two, we're looking at the upper body and we're also looking at things like arm swing, we're looking at shoulder position, we're looking at hip circumduction and movement and whether it's moving in the correct plane. And then the final and the third one that we've just spoke about then is we're looking at the patient's base of gait and whether it's wide or narrow and how that determines someone's balance and center of mass running through their legs. So that's the 3 videos running through: posterior, side-on view, and front-on view for gait analysis.